Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our new guest, Mair Lowery. We're here to break down Thoughtscape Comics issues 1, 2, and 3, and everything in between. Matt, welcome to the stream. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the chance to read issues 1 and 2, and holy crap, I love everything about this. Before we dive too much into the comics, we always start with a nice introduction to who you are and how you got into creating them.
Yeah, so I was approaching middle age and realized that if I wanted to make something happen with writing, which I had always kind of been doing as just a thing on the side, a hobby, since I was a kid, that I needed to get going on that because there wasn't much time. So so I just kind of I had a couple different ideas, and I just sort of spent a year or so sort of studying up on different things. I was also interested in sort of TV writing at the time. But as I was working on a couple ideas, I realized they would be really great as comics.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also, I guess, not only a more achievable goal because I could find an artist to work with, but also where my heart had laid since I was 10. So
Yeah.
So I went down that path, and the first thing I did actually got picked up by Dark Horse. It's called Life Formed. It was sort of a YA story. I wanted to make something that I felt like I could read with my kids, but that was not not just kid centric. I kind of did that crossover thing that I feel like comics can do so well of, introducing kids to sort of adult stuff, but also appealing to them in, visual ways and stuff. So, so I created that with artist Cassie Anderson, and we got picked up. We did two books of that at Dark Horse. And then I just started, kind of went reverse. I went the long form graphic novel stuff out of the gate, and then decided that I really wanted to learn more about making comics, learn more about writing comics, and that a good way to do that would be to do some short stories with a bunch of different artists, and sort of learn, more than just Cassie's approach, I guess, to making comics and collaborating. But that was a fantastic experience. I just felt like I needed to sort of broaden things. And so that got me into doing the short stories that led to Thoughtscape. And so, so here we are.
I was going to say, a lot of new creators usually start with the anthologies first, then the graphic novels.
Yeah.
How did it feel getting picked up by Dark Horse? I mean, swinging out the gates, that had to have been really awesome.
It was very cool. I did a lot of comics, of course, is sort of who and I actually accidentally or unknowingly knew some folks that had worked at Dark Horse that worked at my local comic shop. And so I had put together we did a first issue, basically 24 pages for Life Formed. And I dropped it to those guys at formerly, or what was Bridge City Comics at the time. And I had no idea at the time. I just went in and talked to them every Wednesday and, hung out for way too long talking about whatever had come out that week. And I gave it to them, and they were like, "This is great. You cool if we pass it along to Dark Horse?" And I was like, "Sure, great." So that was a happy sort of accident, I guess. And but yeah, the Dark Horse folks liked it, and it was a very interesting experience. It was fantastic to be published by Dark Horse. It was also a tumultuous time in comics, and so it took a while. And so by virtue of taking a while, I learned a lot just about how publishing worked. In my opinion, how publishing doesn't work in some ways, and maybe the virtues of putting your stuff out yourself a little bit, and the upsides and downsides of that. So. So yeah, it was, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything, and selling books to folks at cons, having them come back the next day and tell you how much they liked it and everything, was all possible because of that. And it it was great, an irreplaceable experience in many ways.
So I'm kind of curious what the graphic novel, what it's about, because I know in issue 1 of Thoughtscape it wasn't like a child's like comic by any means. It was like almost like under like the disguise of it. I don't want to I'm getting too much spoiler, but I remember like I'm like, oh, man, this anthology is like taking so many different turns, and then the end of that I was like, oh my god, that took a horrific turn. So what, backing it up for a much younger audience, what was your first graphic novel? What was that like about?
So it had plenty of darkness to it too, I guess. But so Lifeformed is about a girl named Cleo whose dad is killed in an alien invasion, and a shape-shifting rebel alien takes his place. And this guy's, angry at his people, doesn't want them to be doing this stuff. So these two team up and sort of fight their way through the alien apocalypse. And sort of, so he's learning to be human, learning to be a dad, or what that might mean. And she's sort of, it's a coming of age story for her, while she's also learning to fight back against the invaders. So, it's there's plenty of darkness there too, but it's, I think, like I said, trying to kind of like show a way into sort of the teen years and adulthood and stuff, but also accept where kids are at that point. So yeah, it's fun, it's funny, hopefully, but action packed with the coming of age themes and the parenthood themes. So
I love that. That sounds like such an awesome trip. So for Thoughtscape, I mean, this is a huge anthology. The first one I think was roughly 50-60 pages, correct?
Yeah.
So what was that like for you, kind of working with multiple artists and instead of just one?
It's super cool. I mean, you learn a lot. Part of what I wanted to do was start doing my own stuff so I could move more quickly. And that sort of goes in fits and starts, depending on how much budget you've got and everything to work with folks. But I learned, your learning is sort of exponential at that point. If the more folks you learn, or the more folks you work with, the more you're learning these different styles, and how to write for, people with different interests in what they draw, different abilities or different styles. So it's, I mean, I guess I found it super engaging to be able to, like you were talking about, there's the story called Adorable Orphans in the first issue. It's drawn by Lisa Nafziger, who has a great, very classic cartooning, pop art sort of style, super bright colors and everything. And that sort of like Lifeformed allowed me to sort of, like, as you said, in disguise, sort of sneak in some dark stuff that you don't expect to be dark. And then working with somebody like Tyrell Cannon, who's sort of classic comics, amazing action. And we did sort of a black and white, I guess hard-boiled action story, for lack of a better word. And so working, in with those two different people, for example, is, you're just trying to like figure out what they're both great at drawing and what they want to draw, and also give them like as much freedom as you can, I guess, to like bring to the table what they do, which is, I don't know, in my mind, the art is 80% of things. So it's sort of like, I want to like give them the freedom to really do what they do, and kind of get out of the way. So I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's super engaging. I would do it all the time, and I'd be fine putting out 100-page issues of Thoughtscape if that was if that was doable. And it's just I mean, there's nothing better than getting like a bunch of pages back, and seeing how something turned out, and and the more artists you work with, the more of those you get back. And I love sort of like a wide array of styles, and so it's great to be able to see your stories rendered in these different styles.
So how long did issue 1 take, like, to script and for the art?
Let's see. So I was like, the stories I was just talking about with Tyrell and Lisa, those two, let's see. Actually, I gotta back up. Tyrell and I had done another story that appears in the second issue. So that was the first one that came together. And then Adorable Orphans was the second of the Thoughtscape stories. And those I wasn't sure what I was going to do with. This was before I had the Thoughtscape concept. So a couple of things were done. I would say like a year or so, ultimately to get the different funds together, get the work done, get the visual development work done. Dave Law, who does Thoughtscape 2319, which is sort of the flagship title of the series, and appears in every issue. We spent a lot of time deciding what things would look like, lots of sketches and everything. Whereas somebody like Carl Slominski, who does Ex Post Facto, which is our other ongoing sort of gonzo fever dream comic that closes out each issue. I knew that I wanted to mostly just let Carl run with it and do whatever he wanted, because I wasn't even sure what it was. And so that I just kind of handed to him, and he just came back, with it fully formed and dropped it to me. So I think all around it, probably about a year, coming together in pieces and everything. It was pretty organic. I had done those 2 short stories and felt like I was seeing these themes emerging, basically, that tied things together, and decided that a good way to present it would be sort of 2000 AD style, or Dark Horse Presents, and just collect it, put it under a single banner, give it sort of like a through line, which is some of the some front of book and back of book text that kind of puts you into the world and ties it together. So that's I guess how it sort of came to be, and over what span of time and stuff.
I really liked the 4 words, how you built up each segment. I thought that was such an awesome nod to the old school way comics were done. You don't see that a lot in the newer books, so I thought it was awesome. Were you balancing multiple projects at once, or were you completing them and then moving on to the next one?
No, I think I was definitely had multiple ones going at the same time. I think that in the first issue, the Adorable Orphans was pretty much completed, but the other 3 stories I think were pretty much going kind of simultaneously. So for my day job, I work from home, and I have for a long time. So balancing workload and everything is something I've just been, I have 20 plus years of experience doing that. So throwing a couple more things into my day, especially if they're fun, versus just work, is something that I'm pretty comfortable with and excited to do. Right, it
almost becomes a treat, right? You look forward to getting the boring part of the day done, so you can get to that part.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's figuring out, I actually have over time become more of a morning person, just because that's when it's quietest, and before anybody's kind of pinging me for stuff. So so I I get up in the morning, and I want to put some of my best energy into the creative side of things. So have my coffee, put the music on, and just kind of write or edit or give notes, whatever the case may be.
So what was some of your inspiration for moving towards self-publishing?
So we did the live form books, and I was finding after that, as I tried to pitch stuff to different folks, Dark Horse and plenty of others, that I met at cons and whatnot, that I just wasn't. I think I get sort of impatient with creative things, and a big part of what I felt like I needed to do next was move more quickly, not sort of get mired in the, I guess, you send a pitch over, you don't know if they're going to like it anyway, which I did not seem to be batting very high averages on that front. But I knew what I wanted to make. So I kind of also was secure in knowing that, there's at least an audience of one in me that wants to see what I want to make. And if people want to follow that, that's great. If not, I'm probably going to make it anyway. So so doing it myself rather than, waiting months and months to hear back and then getting a no, or months to hear back and, getting like the not quite this or something. I just felt like I really wanted to dig in, and because I really enjoyed that experience of publishing those books, and I wanted more of that faster. And again, I'm getting up there, so it's like I want to like do this while I can, and do as much of it while I can. And so that really made me want to just sort of take it over. I wasn't sure if I was going to go like the crowdfunding route. I was sort of not interested in that very much, but I was seeing a lot of folks having great success, a lot of folks that I admired, and putting out great stuff. So I wanted to, I guess, just try it. And then the first Thoughtscape ended up taking off pretty decently in that manner. And and then I just kind of ended up, I guess, building a model around that. But basically, I just sort of see Thoughtscape as like a thing I can do for a really long time. The sort of conceit of it means that I can tell kind of any story I want to within it. That's a sci-fi thing, and that's pretty much where my writing tends to go. So it just seems like a good fit. And like you said, there's not a lot of people doing some of the stuff I want to do. Stuff that when I was 12 or whatever in 1986, and I saw like Grendel for the first time, or Watchmen, or what else? The Question, the Aliens books that Dark Horse put out back in the day. Like all those had what felt like these, just dense worlds that you could just get lost in, and it's hard to do that in one graphic novel or 6 issues anyway. So if I can give myself the runway to do that, it seemed like a better approach.
Absolutely. And your first Kickstarter, you killed it too. If I remember, I think I looked it up. Wow, what was your numbers on that?
We had like 407 or something backers.
Wow.
And, like $9,500
for your first campaign. Like, holy crap, man.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I didn't, I don't think I realized at the time like how good that was. It seemed like it went over well. And I think like I have a good friend that I've known since high school that did some of the graphic design work for me, the creation of the logo and a bunch of the elements. I've been doing design for a long time, so being able to work with what he gave me, plus all the amazing art I had, since I do this stuff for my day job, I had like lots of tools at my disposal. So I think like I was able to create something that looked pretty pro, and that helped it come across for sure. And that's John Larson is my friend that did the graphic design stuff, who's amazingly talented. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I mean, that's part of the whole premise of it too, is to like pull in all these amazing folks and get to work with them, because I feel like they maybe a lot of people feel like this, but like I feel like my work is fine, but like when I elevate it with all these other folks' amazingness, then we end up with something special, some of its parts kind of thing.
Real quick, we have Plunk 24 over on Twitch stopping in to say what's up, how are you all doing, and J. Michael Miller over on YouTube stopping in to say, you can tell great promotional graphics on top of the art.
Nice.
Yeah, I think overall, like reading this book, I was floored. I loved it. I just loved the concept of it. I loved each story, the little bit you gave before each story to kind of like ease the reader into it. Yeah. Just nailing it on every mark. I think right now would be a perfect segue. Let's go ahead and hop over to Kickstarter and check out the campaign. All right. And for everyone that is watching, right here is the link. It is New Comic Book Day, so be sure to check it out with us. If you're unable to back, simply putting it on Facebook, Twitter, anywhere you can. Word of mouth is 100% free, and it helps get as many eyes on this project as possible. So we're looking at Thoughtscape Comics issue 1 through 3, issues 1, 2, and 3 of a new sci-fi anthology comic book series in the tradition of 2000 AD, Black Mirror and the Twilight Zone. Currently at $4,549 of a $15,500 goal, with 105 backers and 26 days left to go. I mean, dude, like 4 days into it, you're already at a fourth of your backers from your first campaign. That has to be a good feeling.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was, when we crossed 100, I was pretty stoked. It felt like maybe we can get the momentum going to really nail it.
And project we love too. Congratulations on that as well.
Yeah.
So right here, we're going to be taking a look at some of the interiors. Once again, each issue is 48 to 60 pages long. It is a decent amount of reading. What made you want to go that long for each issue?
It kind of just became a function of how many stories I felt like made sense for each issue. So we've got the two, Dave Law and Carl Selminski doing the two serialized stories. So I knew I wanted those to be 6 to 8 pages per chapter. Really, again, following a real 2000 AD approach there. And then the short story and then the 2 short stories in each issue, self-contained. I wanted to just be able to do the thing where like I just write it as long as it needs to be the story, and as long as it needs to be to tell the story, I want to do that. So so that plus wanting to throw in sort of the interstitial matter, like we've got some fake ads, in the tradition of RoboCop and Starship Troopers and that kind of stuff, some satirical stuff in the middle there to add some humor in most cases. It just sort of ended up getting to that 48-page mark, and then some of the stories are longer, so we just kind of like fluctuate between those two. And I felt like, a nice perfect bound volume was a cool way to go, which we funded enough on the first Kickstarter to go down that path. And then it's got, a nice prestige-y late 80s, DC feel to it. So it's for a natural fit, I guess.
So let's take a look at some of these stories too. This is for Thoughtscape, the first issue, 48 pages. So Thoughtscape 2319 part 1. When I was reading this, I was kind of floored just by what the concept of it. Like I love just like how in depth things got. Part 2 is like things get so chaotic. Holy crap. But give us a little bit about part 1 and the art, the artist and the creative team and everything.
Yeah, so this is me and Dave Law, who does everything else aside from the writing. And this is this story. So the overall conceit of Thoughtscape is that there is a corporation that has figures out in the late 70 years from now or so, how to access the Thoughtscape, which is this sort of like 5th dimension where every thought that has ever been thought exists. And that overall concept came sort of from this story where I've got a thought and information service collection officer, Odessa Query, who is basically out in deep space collecting thoughts at these different outposts. And so they're just recording what's out in that space as is happening across the universe. And so here I wanted to do something really alien influenced, and also use it as a way to sort of introduce the world and the concepts. So that's what we have here. She's out with one of the thought collectors, this guy Fela there, and collecting thoughts. And so the first chapter is pretty slow. Not slow, but slow build, I guess. We're introducing the concepts. We're showing her, daily journey as she goes around collecting these things, and then leading to her discovering a crime at a call a thought parish, which is basically a floating space church. So yeah, and as you said, in the second issue, things get sort of chaotic from there. Anytime you go aboard a space station where there's been a crime, it's got to get crazy. So that's what happens. Dave's great. Dave does a cool combination of sort of real traditional pencils and inks, and then sort of a watercolor Photoshop approach to coloring, which is beautiful, as you can see there. So super fun to look at. And
the concept, you can take this like forever. It feels like there's just like so many different. You can create outpost after outpost if needed.
That would be the plan if we can really knock it out of the park. Yeah, for sure.
And then we have Spy Without a Face.
Yeah, so this is Tyrell I talked about earlier. a master of comic book action. He's worked with Aubrey Sitterson, creating Beef Bros. He's working with Ryan Stegman now on a project. And this is a sort of just hard boiled, like, so the first story Tyrell and I did, which actually shows up in the second issue, was pretty quiet, with some craziness. And then the more I got into looking at all Tyrell's work, I saw what he was doing with the action, and I wanted to really embrace that. So I wrote a very loose plot about some assassins that infiltrate this lab, and then basically just said, like, do whatever you want with this sort of Marvel style, I guess, like, do what you want with this loose plot. And then I went in over the top of that, and I lettered this story, so I got to, like, I wrote, like, basically hard-boiled narration, over the top of this, and got to really just, like, work it on top of the art, which was a blast.
How was lettering? Was that, like, your first time doing it?
Yes, this was the first one. I mean, because I'm learning to letter. I knew I would want to do it slowly. It usually takes me a while to, like, really lock into this stuff, and so sort of by design, I did this one with just captions, and that was, I sort of built the story around that idea that it would be these hard-boiled captions and not really dialogue. And so doing a box around stuff, working with the text, it's not too far from what I have done for a lot of my life, doing user interface design, web design, and print design, but an art all its own. So it was super fun. I liked it. I feel like I'm learning a lot, and and then in issue 2 I lettered something with some dialogue balloons, and now I'm doing something for issue 3 where I'm trying to push it a little bit more. So yeah, it's a process, but it's super fun, and I'm super interested in geeking out on it. So
now, how many of these do you have, like, each story individually?
Yes, I do.
So
yeah.
What we'll do is let's go ahead and just pick out some favorites too. So that
sure.
So we've talked about Adorable Orphans, but this one was the ending one of issue 1. So give us a little bit about this one.
So this is Ex Post Facto by me and Carl Slominski. This story came out of me, like, in 2020 when the world was completely unhinged for a little while. I mean, still pretty unhinged, but I was just kind of, like, writing these little diatribes in my notes app, and at some point I was like, it started seeming like there was some structure to it. I was like, maybe I could turn this into a script. I don't know. And then at the same time, I was coming across Carl's art and was super taken with it. As you can see, it's amazing. And I thought, well, this guy looks like he's into crazy shit, and so maybe he'd be up for, like, seeing if we can turn this into a thing. So I wrote a script that wasn't even sure it was intelligible, but I sent it to him, and like I said, he came back with sort of like this fully baked look and feel, and he was handling you'll see, like, tons of different caption type boxes and, like, little scrawl, throughout. And just weirdness, and I had, like, the character turns into a mushroom cloud at one point, and Carl was like, do you actually mean he turns into a mushroom cloud? I'm like, yes. And so then he was like, all right, I got it. And then he just went from there, and I sort of understood that we were just going for it in a gonzo, I don't know, hunter.
So I gotta ask, like, how, what was your how much direction did you have in this? Because this looks like one huge, like, acid trip almost, if you know what I mean. Like, there's just so much going on. Like, did you let him kind of take the wheel, or?
For sure. I think, like, I give, like, what I see it as, and I try to be, like, real descriptive, but I think like the cassette, going through Dash's head, I kind of had that, but not like the cassette is shattered and the tape is going through, he's really, like, pushing it into an artistic zone and making the page work in a way that, like, I'm not paying attention to. And as we get, like, more and more out there, like, I think he's definitely taking my script more as a guideline, but really pushing it into something that he knows works. and yeah, which is key. It's got to flow, right?
Because it looks like there's like 4 different styles here, like with this panel and this panel is its own thing, and then like I just love this. It's crazy this came from one person.
Yeah, it's totally. I mean, if you and folks can go on the thing and go further. If you go down to the 3rd issue, you see these pages that push that even further. We've got some straight up like just Calvin and Hobbes style art in one of the pages. Just some pencil work in a panel, like we're changing it up like panel to panel. So yeah, it's super fun. And for this, it's mostly like now I'm writing these scripts for Carl to just like, because I want to see Carl try to draw this thing. And see
now you're just like, hey, let's try to go a little bit more than we did last time.
Yeah, totally.
So we have Thoughtscape issue 2, 52 pages. And starting off with a continuation from Thoughtscape 2319 part 2. Yep. This is where it gets really chaotic. I love this, but let's go ahead and talk about this next one, because this one was a heavy hitter. And I gotta ask, like, is there some sort of like symbolism between like a faceless like creation? I don't know, because I kind of got that from the second story in issue 1, and then this story in particular.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's actually in life form too, to some degree. So it seems to be a theme that just comes naturally to me. I don't know if it all goes back to Terminator 2 and the sort of formative experience of that. But yeah, I was writing a bunch of these stories, and I had a friend who was looking at some kind of like doing some editing for me or just some feedback. And he was like, you really like the doppelganger sort of morphing faceless creature stuff. And it's like, yeah, I guess that's everywhere. I guess I'll just lean into it, rather than try to avoid it, since it comes so naturally. So yeah, they definitely appear throughout. And a lot of it's taking the concepts. So I'm trying to take like our current tech state of things in the world, think about like what would happen if we had more access to people's thoughts directly. How would companies exploit that, and what might they do? Plus, as we push, into robotics or like more advanced robotics or whatever, like what's that going to look like? And then touchstones like Terminator and everything are big for me. So it's sort of like, as that stuff keeps growing, like how does that work its way into our lives? Not necessarily always in like an action-packed sort of way or like an extreme story sort of way, but how does it look in the day-to-day, like the more mundane things. I
love you hit it so hard on the nail too. I love like the microtransactions in this, what I mean? Like, oh man, I was like, at the end, I'm like, oh my God, this is like too good. This is like, could happen. Like, this is like, nice. I could see this happening.
Yeah, cool. No, that's a perfect way to put it. It's like what are the microtransactions of this like weird world that, I mean, I would argue that we're already getting to, but especially with Thoughtscape, like how does it manifest? So yes, I will totally take the microtransactions.
It kind of Blade Runner, like where he's talking and he has the eventually gets the ability to like buy like a actual like physical copy of the girl instead of just the visual.
Totally. Yep. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, and Jacob Edgar did the art on this with colors by Leslie Atlansky. Jacob's now working with Bendis on the ones for Dark Horse.
Wow,
which is amazing. So yeah, and then here's That Quiet Story by Tyrell and I. Who this is got a little more fever dream sci-fi meets Office Space, I guess would be my pitch for this one. But great art from Tyrell. And then here's a little bit more from Carl. You can see we're getting crazier as we get into issue 2.
And I love the balance of black and white panels, like with the splash of the color.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's like not something I tend to go for like detail when I'm thinking about stuff. And so working with Carl is super instructive and awesome because it yields this, but also like seeing like how you balance something so rich with detail, like the big back shot here with the helicopter in the city with the real punctuated black and white. Like that's amazing, right? You can only learn that, I feel like,
in the lettering right here is like so trippy.
Yes. Yeah, totally. So
and then right here is Thoughtscape issue 3. So this is all going to be brand new to me. I haven't had a chance to see any of this. So we have so go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so yeah, we've got our continuation of 2319 here, the follow-up to what you read of After Things Go Crazy. We get into some violence and some mystery with that, which should be fun. And then, so this is Jeremy Brooks doing Corpus Delicti, which is if basically a rich dude wants his chef to prepare a alien delicacy, and what happens with that. This is a fun silent story, basically. Very few words, mostly just trying to. I wanted to try to do the G.I. Joe issue 26 sort of silent thing and see if I could pull something like that off. So this is great. And then Playing Possum with art by Dessalina Fletcher. The story of a girl who encounters a strange possum in the woods. Dessalina knocked it out of the park on that one.
I love
really
this color palette.
Stuff. Yeah, she's fantastic.
And then we have Ex Post Facto Part 3.
Yeah. Yep. And then Part 3, this is the page I was talking about. Like, we got some real variety again here in the art. So Carl's ability to kind of go all over the place manifest. So
wow, this is wild.
Yeah, so I'm that page in particular, so we do this is super nerdy, but I'm going to print the issues on like an uncoated 70-pound paper stock, like kind of late 80s feel. And that top part where it's just sitting on the white with the little fetus there, I'm very excited to see how that prints. I think it will look amazing. So, yeah.
And then right here is a quick look at the creative team as well. Yeah. Just kind of scrolling through them.
Yeah, our covers too. We got Jenna Cha, Grim Wilkins, and Valentine Barker on the covers for 1, 2, and 3.
And then some you had the producer writer on HBO's Max's Doom Patrol. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that was cool. So I listened to the Nerdist Writers Panel, which is a TV writing podcast, and she was on there. And I dug her take on things, so I sent her the book pretty cold, and she got back to me on that. So,
and then right here are the rewards. So we'll go through some of these tiers as well.
Cool. Yeah. And so basically, go ahead.
I was going to say, for anyone that is watching, here is the link. Be sure to check this out with us, and once again, just share it on Facebook and Twitter if you can't. So I'll let you go ahead and take the wheel.
Cool. Yeah. So we've got basically any combination you want to get, you should be able to put together. As far as the comic itself goes, you can buy 2 and 3 in a pack if you already backed the first Kickstarter. You can buy 1, 2, 3 in a pack if you didn't. With both those, you can get process PDFs that'll be pretty detailed. The first one I put together for the first Kickstarter, I was going to have 24 pages of process material, and it ended up being like 70 pages. So I don't know when to stop, hopefully to the benefit of backers. So any combination you want, you can get the first 3 issues or any sort of subset of them with process materials. And then I'm doing trading cards and stuff for each issue as well. Or if you want to, I've got 30 or so left of below there, the Life Formed Mega Pack, which has all the Thoughtscape issues plus those 2 200-page each graphic novels that we were talking about earlier. So folks can grab that up if they like, and there's some art there from Cassie for the second book. And let's see, that comes obviously with the process stuff. So then below we do have also a bunch of add-on rewards that are pretty cool. We've got commissions from Dave, Carl, and Jeremy Brooks.
Oh, the punk spider. I love that.
Yeah, that was super cool. And this is, of course, original art. So if you get a commission from one of these guys, you tell them, who you want them to draw, and they will work on that, and that'll ship to you directly from the artist in addition to me shipping you your comics.
That's so cool. And you also have posters.
Yeah, I wanted to take, so issue 3 ends up being this real sort of like bright pop art vibe, and I wanted to really like lean into that and almost do sort of like movie style posters or,
Mm-hmm.
old school promo posters. Um, and so these you can get in a couple different ways. I can just do them old school and we can fold them up like posters. We used to pull out of magazines that were all stapled and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You can get them that way, or you can get them shipped flat if you want to like throw them in a frame or whatever. So there's 2 choices there. And then I've also got some prints. I have like 5 prints left that are more on a cardstock type of thing from the first issue of the cover. So those are available. And then I've got sort of like a group of friends that are sort of the Thoughtscape advisory board, and they all have projects as well. So this is Tenebrous Press. They're a horror sort of prose and comics publisher.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a bundle from them of 3 books that you could pick up. They're all great, fantastic covers on them.
I'm loving these bundles, man.
Yeah, they're pretty fun. I had a blast putting them together. It's, I don't know. It feels like a real fun way to show people other work as well, and sort of in the spirit of the anthology. So Tyrell's bundle there, Speculative Relationships, a 3-volume comic series with some great folks in there like Daniel Warren Johnson and stuff. So amazing work in there. And Corridor magazine. As well, horror, prose, comics mix, and Spectral. Below that is a comic sort of similar to Thoughtscape a little bit, and more horror based, from David Campo and Chris Anderson. And then a couple comics I have lying around, which is the Adorable Orphans standalone and a first issue of Lifeform that Scout published as sort of a collector's item thing, which has the first.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So that is the Kickstarter in its entirety. For anyone that is watching and maybe on the fence about backing, what would you like to say to them directly to kind of help push them over that bump?
I guess I think you will be, if you like sci-fi, if you like Black Mirror, if you like, if you're happen to be a Twilight Zone fan. I know we just came off of Twilight Zone marathons for New Year's. If you like 2000 AD, or you just like good sci-fi with lots of concepts, amazing art. I don't know. I feel like one of the things I wanted to do was put a sampler sort of together of all the amazing work that's out there, all these folks I was seeing online. And so I guess I feel like if you love comics, if you love some density, you can't go wrong with this. And like you said, those bundles are pretty great. A great way to like sample a bunch of stuff for under $100, and really like broaden your palette. I think it can't miss.
No, absolutely. We have Insmod32 over on Twitch stopping in to say it looks very impressive. Yeah, I gotta agree. I think the art, the story as well is just, it's awesome. It's such an awesome reading experience. So, what's next for you outside of the Kickstarter and Thoughtscape? Like any other projects you're working on?
I am pretty Thoughtscape centric these days. I have been thinking about trying to write some prose stuff, but even that is mostly sort of taking place in a Thoughtscape world. So, right now, probably too much. I might have all my eggs in the Thoughtscape basket, but I think that it's a flexible concept, and I am hoping. I guess what's next is like my goal, and this also maybe speaks to why people should back it. Like I want to try to develop this as a brand that can produce reliable, great stuff regularly, and I think that's really sort of my goal, is find the regularity of being able to get this stuff into folks' hands.
No, absolutely. That's awesome. And I think any folk that get it in their hand is a very fortunate individual. So with that being said, guys, new comic book day. Here is the link for the 3rd time and the final time. Be sure to check it out. If you can't back, putting it on Facebook and Twitter is 100% free. So Matt, we've come to one of my favorite parts of the show, and that's where I get to ask you a little bit of advice for anyone who might be new and watching. So I think we'll switch it up a little bit. And having worked with so many different artists, what would be the best advice you'd have for someone who is like taking on an anthology themselves, getting ready to work with a lot of different artists?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. I think, I would really pay attention to what the artists that you're interested in working sort of do on a regular basis. Like, are they working frequently as far as publishing work online? How do they, if you reach out to communicate with them, are they very responsive? You know, just get a good, like, try to get as good a feel as you can for who you're going to be working with as possible. Because once you're in it, you're going to want to have like a good foundation of a relationship that you can like really communicate with each other. It can definitely be a challenge. Like, there's projects that I've started that haven't worked out. And I think to that end, like, you know, do some test pages with people, even if it's just 1 or 2 pages that you can afford to do. You know, pay them. It's just a test. If you like what you get back, you know, then you can proceed. But doing that sort of paid work up front will really help, like, figure out if you can work with that person in a variety of ways. So yeah, I would say, like, proceed wisely, especially if you're working on a small budget. You know, be judicious as you choose, and then really try to develop a relationship and be collaborative. I think the one thing I have a lot of people, or not a lot of people, I've had a lot of people like that I've just heard talk about this. I have some folks have come to me. Being overly prescriptive as a writer in comics, to me, I understand it. I was there myself once, but I've come to realize that that's sort of both just foolish and counterproductive, because it's a visual medium. The artist is the director and everything else except for the writer, and you want them to be bringing like their A game, and people bring their A game when they care and when they feel like they have control and power. So give them that control and power, and like let them run with it. And you make your choice in like the casting, right? The selection of that artist, and don't get to, you know, unless you got like a real plot detail that just gets missed or something, that's one thing. But like, don't get too prescriptive about, you know, what kind of clock's on the wall and what kind of, you know, like, let that person sort of do what they do. That's why you're bringing them in the first place. And comics are always better when the artist gets a chance to do their thing.
Yeah. I think letting them kind of take the wheel lets them really put their flair into it. And I mean, a lot of times I often hear during interviews that the artist will come back with something that the writer might not have been thinking about originally, but they go with it because it makes more sense. Yep. So, I mean, you know, trust the artist, trust the process. I think that's some awesome advice, Matt. Thank you so much. Everyone watching, this has been such an awesome sit down with Matt. There is the link in chat. Be sure to check out the Kickstarter. It's New Comic Book Day. Treat yourself to a new book. But most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.